By the way, all this stuff is like not your fault. All of this stuff is, you know, conditioning, brainwashing. It's all like preparing you to be controllable, to live in fear. This is not your fault. It's no wonder you're feeling the way that you are. Right now, if you are experiencing a period of time where you have no energy, you feel like the smallest of tasks is like such a mountain, you feel like lazy compared to the kind of capacity that you used to have before, and you're getting irritated by everything, like even the smallest things that wouldn't ordinarily irritate you, it sounds like you have burnout. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well today. Today I'm keen to talk about the creators of burnout, the reasons why we feel burnout and how it's not your fault. We are encouraged to overwork, we are encouraged to hustle constantly and feel like we always could be doing more. And this doesn't even just, you know, relate to work necessarily, but everything, kind of capitalistic structure we live in, the glorifying workaholism, the glorifying of overworking, and the glorifying of intense hustle culture. Right now, I am experiencing burnout. I have been experiencing burnout for probably the past 6 months, I would say. I got made redundant at the beginning of the year, and I feel like it was the universe literally telling me, like, you need to stop, you need to calm down, you need to stop hustling. Because before that point, in the past kind of like 5 or 6 years before that, I'd had one duvet day during COVID, like where I literally just didn't do anything for the entire day, like nothing towards any of the pursuits I was like heading towards. And I remember this one holiday that I went on last year, and I remember like the first 2 or 3 days I was like committing myself to not doing any work, not even taking content, not thinking about it at all, and I couldn't do it. And I remember literally like in the evening sitting on the beach crying my eyes out because I was like, fuck, I am so overworked, I'm so burnt out, I just feel like I'm failing. And I think that's the key thing. It's like feeling like we're failing, or feeling as though things, you know, are not necessarily working out for us. I think coming from that sort of desperate place is what keeps us in this loop of overworking, you know, hustling, and it's so toxic. And yeah, as I said, right now I'm experiencing this period of time where I am burnt out. Like I find, you know, honestly the most basic tasks a lot of work. My capacity was so much more previously. Before I got made redundant, I was working obviously my 9 till 5, but in the morning on my way to my commute to work, I would be like answering messages, commenting, doing all my social media engagement, like preparing my posts. I would be doing the same on the journey back. So not only would I work, but on the journeys there, I'd be like working as well. And then I'd get home, make dinner, and then I would immediately be, you know, spending 2 or 3 hours working on my side hustles or content creation again. And it was just so much. You know, I look back on that time and I think, like, how did I even do that? Because right now I couldn't fathom doing any of that. If we actually deconstruct where the 9 till 5 has come from, where this idea of like rat race, hustle culture, workaholism has truly come from, we realize how, first of all, it's just construction, and second of all, that it's just not appropriate for so many people. It doesn't work for so many people, and it leaves so many people not only not working at their capacity, but leaving them very unfulfilled and very unhappy. And that's what I want to talk about today. Capitalism's obsession with encourage people to see their worth and, you know, attribute their worth to their output has come from the Industrial Revolution and during Fordism, where, you know, things like scientific management started to rise. You know, how close we can get humans to becoming, or functioning at least, like robots. You know, scientific management was like optimizing humans for the most amount of productivity, the most amount of output. How can we, you know, close the gap between, you know, time people spend to rest or recuperate or recharge, close the gap so that we're getting the most out of everybody all the time. And I think something that I feel like they failed to, or did fail to recognize at the time, was that you can't close the gap on those kind of things. Humans have to rest and recuperate. They have to recharge. That is something that unfortunately we still really haven't learned from. You know, we still most of the time work 9 till 5 days a week. That is a huge amount of our life that is being taken up. And what's kind of interesting is that they have kind of like picked hours that are smack bang in the middle of the day for most people. Starting at 9 and leaving at 5, you don't have a huge amount of time outside of that, you know, on either side. It takes up most of their day. You know, it's not a big enough amount of time on either side of the 9 till 5 to pursue anything different, to be doing anything else, because you're kind of exhausted. And then on top of that, to then be working in a job that you don't enjoy, that doesn't fulfill you, that doesn't make you feel good. And granted, there are people where they're 9 to 5, they thrive, you know, they love it. From what I'm seeing on social media, from what I'm experiencing, you know, from myself, you know, 9 to 5's never worked for me anyway. And I've had 3 jobs, corporate jobs. And from what I'm seeing from like my generation, especially like Gen Z and like younger millennials, is that, you know, the 9 to 5 doesn't allow them to pursue anything outside of that 9 to 5, or at least they're too exhausted to, you know, even just engage in hobbies, because their whole life, especially for those 5 days, is purely dedicated to work, you know, preparing for work or commuting to work. And then you have 2 days off that people kind of just want to blow off some steam. They're not necessarily focused on like working more. So it's just such a vicious cycle. And the more you kind of see it, the more you can't unsee it. There's something that I can't help but see as deliberate. Not a huge amount has changed in like 100 years. You know, we still give an awful lot of our time, an awful lot of our labour to other people and to our work that we can't necessarily see with, you know, the work that we're putting in at work or in a business or at corporate. We're not necessarily, outside of money, seeing much coming back to us. And I think the more and more, you know, the generations kind of evolve, especially Gen Z, are starting to realise not only is time more important than money, but money is just not good enough anymore. You know, more and more people, especially during COVID, you know, people are rejecting the 9 to 5 more and more, because they had this period of time where they were like, wait a minute, I don't have to work 9 to 5, give most of my life away to, frankly, companies that really don't care about you as much as you probably care about them, or, you know, value them. People started becoming content creators, people started side hustles, people started businesses, people started working themselves, becoming self-employed, people started like gaining new skills and learning new skills to move away from like constraints of the 9 till 5. The things that are beginning to die with it are those feelings of needing to be working a lot, those feelings of workaholism, the rat race. People don't know that they don't need to work and put in so many hours to get, you know, a certain amount of money. There are people that are making money in their sleep. People don't like recognize that as often. We don't have to sign away, we don't have to give away our time for, frankly, not enough money. Business owners, you know, essentially elites, they need people to join the rat race. They need people to follow this kind of like archaic structure that is 5-day working week, because it garners more control for them. They are allowed to control more people. They can extract and harvest as much energy and productivity from people and pay them, you know, nothing compared to the kind of wealth they're actually receiving from that person working. School does condition you for the 9 till 5. It conditions you to believe that the 9 till 5 is like the aspirational journey you can take. And it's, yeah, that's great for the people that actually would thrive in that situation, but honestly most people I don't think do. I'm experiencing burnout because of this, because I'm one of those people that just is not meant for that kind of lifestyle, especially people who are sensitive and people that are susceptible to being overstimulated. The 9 till 5 is very rarely suitable for them. You know, we get tested, we are kind of put in pressurized situations. There is authority, we have to obey people. Same thing with like having to do what your boss says. You know, you're being conditioned to think those things are normal. I remember A-level, I was like constantly feeling like I had to work, constantly feeling like I wasn't being productive enough, and then procrastinating and then beating myself up about it. There's always this feeling, there's always this sense that you could be doing more. There's always more work you could be doing. You know, if you're not catching up on lectures, you could be working towards an assignment, or you could be working towards a big project, or revising. There's always more you can be doing. And that's what makes things exhausting. That's what leads to burnout. It's because there's this idea that like the work never stops. And I thought, oh my God, yay, like I can't wait to get into the world of work and just be able to switch off when I leave. That's just not a thing. You know what? Okay, maybe you're not experiencing physical work that you have to do like at work, but it's the kind of like anxiety around it that dominates your brain. So for example, when I used to work my 9 till 5, I would wake up at like 6 or 7 and be anxious literally until I got to work. I'd be anxious about catching the train to get to work, you know, and then leaving work, I'd be thinking, oh shit, I've got stuff to do next day. I've got like 3 more days of work to like get through. You know, even the idea of like Sunday scaries that people experience, you know, Sunday's not even like a day you can fully enjoy because you're like nervous about, you know, Monday. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's the kind of labour I'm talking about. That's the kind of like overworkedness I'm thinking about when I say like, okay, cool, even if you don't have a hustle, even if you're not working like physically outside of your 9 to 5 for a different kind of future, then you are nervous about or anxious about or have unease around your work day. There are obviously jobs or, you know, experiences people have where they can just like go to the job and then come home and they don't have to think about it. I don't know many of those people. I don't. You know, it's like the norm for people to like work overtime in corporate and not get paid for it. It's the norm for people to like stay later because they feel obliged to. You know, it's encouraging this sense that your value and what your life's purpose is your 9 to 5, is your, you know, is your work. And it unfortunately is a precursor to feeling as though your productivity is what makes you worthwhile. Your output is what makes you like valuable, because obviously getting paid for the labor that you put into a company, it's like conditioning you to believe that you are worth a certain amount. It's just insidious. It conditions you to believe more work equals more money. Once you realise that that is complete bollocks, you can't unsee it. And I think the problem is most people are in this space. Most people think more work equals more money. And yes, in the 9 to 5, that is actually true. When you start to realise that like pursuing a different path, you know, your money that you earn doesn't equal the amount of labour that you put in, all these things start to unravel, all these like limiting beliefs start to unravel. They certainly unravelled for me, realising that I can make good money without having to like break my back in, which I would have had to do to make the same amount of money in corporate, was a revelation to me. It was really like, and I know this sounds obvious, but it kind of isn't obvious. Like, we're conditioned to believe that exact thing, that our productivity equals you know, the money that we earn, or money, you know, our productivity equals our worth, and you know, money therefore equals our worth. And actually it's all wrong. We are inherently worthwhile. Actually, our time is the most important thing. When you realize that time is more important than money, that is what people are, you know, that is what businesses are actually taking from us, then we start to realize our true power. So the average person values money, and then the businesses actually value your time, and actually your time is so much more worthwhile than any money you could earn, to be honest. There have been situations where I've turned down projects which were, you know, a decent amount of money but weren't worth my time. It's not worth it for me to use up my time, even if like the money's good, because I value, you know, what I utilize my time with. We have one life, we have what, like 80-90 years, that's all we have. And that's what businesses know that I feel like most people don't know or don't clock onto. Businesses know that time is the most important asset humans have, and they utilize it. That's why the 9 to 5 exists. That's why they ask for 40 hours, 50 hours from you per week. That's why overtime is kind of like encouraged and sort of pressured on people to kind of engage in. They know that time is so important. They know that's the most important thing. And once that veil is lifted, you can't unsee it. That is what they bank on. And they know they can manipulate you with money. They know that they can get into, you know, they know that you rely on money to perhaps live, you know, pay your bills, so on. Yes, money is important, but it is secondary to time. They get the exact same time from you, if not more, from whatever they pay you. And honestly, they want you to kind of equate your value to your productivity, because when people equate their productivity to you know, how valuable they are, that means that, you know, there's an incentive for businesses to get more productivity out of you, to get more hours from you, because they know that you're going to get a rush from that, because you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm putting in all this work, I'm putting in all this labour, I'm putting in all this time, therefore I'm more valuable. They utilise that, perpetuate that conditioning to gain more from you. And that's why it's so sinister. And honestly, like, look, we're all in the same situation. Most of us live in a capitalistic society. We all deduce much of our value to our productivity. Yeah, okay, I don't work a 9 till 5 now, but honestly, if I don't get like my tasks that I set for myself done, I feel like trash. And it's like having to like unwind, having to unlearn, having to unravel those ideas that my achievements equal my worth. That's what capitalists, elites rely on you to think in order to keep you in the rat race, in order to keep you working for them. It's so convenient. To make matters worse as well, it's reinforced by other people. So obviously in capitalism, you know, everything revolves around the rat race, literally everything, kind of glorifying this overworking hustle culture. Like, you know, it's even getting to the point where like a lack of rest is like something to be proud of, which is so fucking wild to me. I saw his post and it was like, oh, well, you're sleeping, I'm working, and I'm like, good for you. That is not something that ever should be coming out of anybody's mouth. It's also part of the 9 till 5 structure in that people are out here begging for holiday. People are out here begging for sick pay. People are literally out here begging for a rest. Like, why are we having to beg for holiday? It's so weird that we have to ask permission for holiday or for a break or for time off or just like mental health days. Like, as humans, we all experience these things, we all need these things, we all need these things as a requirement to continue, to keep going, to like stay, you know, fulfilled and on top of things. And the fact that we're out here having to like beg this like person that clearly doesn't give a fuck about us and we don't give a fuck about them, our boss, for us to experience our life and to enjoy our life in some capacity is so fucked. Like, it doesn't feel like it's built for sustainability. It doesn't feel like it's built for certainly human capacity sustainability. It's just keeping people in fear. It's keeping people at this low vibration to then presumably be able to control them easier because they don't know any different and they're plagued by their limiting beliefs. That's what capitalists and elites want. They want people to be a low vibration. They don't want people to have time to work on things that fulfill them, because when people are miserable, when people are sad, they live in fear and they live in this place of like lack mentality and place of a lack of audaciousness. And honestly, they are easy to control. They are easy to command. It is easy to ensure that people obey them because they live in fear of like, oh my god, if I don't do this, like, what's going to happen to me if I don't follow orders? Just like, funnily enough, at school and uni, if you didn't follow orders, you would be punished in some way, whether that be, you know, not being able to get the opportunities because you didn't get the grades, or whether that's because you're going to be humiliated in front of everybody in class, or you're going to lose out on class time, or you're going to, you know, basically get punished in some way. It's this sort of like animalistic treatment. It's like, if you don't fall in line, you're going to get punished. And it's the similar thing, it just works in a different way. The punishment is different. So, you know, if you don't give basically everything you've got into this 9 till 5, you will be threatened with redundancy, demotion, being fired on an ad hoc basis, or, you know, getting flack from your boss for not basically behaving like a robot and being able to be like this productive, emotionless, you know, individual. And it is undoubtedly going to lead to burnout. That kind of like situation where people live in constant fear and constant lack, you know, constant unfulfillment, leads to low vibration, leads to lack of self-esteem, which ultimately mean that you don't have the capacity to fight back. You don't have the willingness or the strength to fight for yourself, because not only do you believe that all these limiting beliefs about like your productivity equals your worth and so on, because we herald money as the most important thing, we value that as the most important thing, and anything that affects or threatens or jeopardizes our ability to get money, we live in fear of. You know, most people want to just do what they're told and do what's right in the name of like what the company tell them to do, in order to stay safe, in order to stay stable. Because we know that money gives us stability, we know that money gives us safety. And when something or somebody threatens that, we either have two options. We either lose the stability and the safety of money in that moment, or we just do what they're told, do what we're supposed to do, follow suit, and we will be safe and stable knowing that that money is going to come in. And from my opinion, I feel like this fear, this place of fear that most people experience with money and fear around money is keeping them controllable, is keeping them unfulfilled, is leading to burnout, is encouraging this culture of workaholism and overwork, because we think, okay, the more work we put in, the more we prove to our bosses that we're committed and we are trustworthy, the more we're going to get back. And it just doesn't work that way. But that's how our brain thinks, because we think, you know, more work equals more productivity equals happy boss. And unfortunately, actually, we're only doing ourselves a disservice when we do that. It's just this kind of vicious cycle that we see. People live in fear of like the alternative to going with the 9 till 5. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm living it right now and it's pretty scary. You know, there are so many things that feel unsafe and unstable, but I suppose from my end, it's kind of like, pick your unstable, pick your safety or lack of safety. Going and doing your own thing, taking a risk on yourself is like a lack of safety and stability, but so is working for somebody else. It just isn't a different way. You might not be financially unstable, but the emotional instability of being nervous, anxious, like uneasy about going to work, or the emotional instability and lack of safety because you're living a life that you don't want. My emotional and like mental stability is more important, because I know that when that's like ticking away and good, financial stability is going to come in because I have an abundant mindset. Whereas when you're in like this fear mindset, that capitalism, by the way, all this stuff is like not your fault. All of this stuff is, you know, conditioning, brainwashing. It's all like preparing you to be controllable, to live in fear. This is not your fault. It's no wonder you're feeling the way that you are. You know, trying to make that effort from going from like the fear mindset, which is like what keeps a lot of people in the 9 till 5 when they don't want to be in it, and switching to abundant mindset actually helps you create the life for yourself that you truly want and that's fulfilling. Yes, it's scary, but again, like, pick your heart. Which one is it going to be? Is it going to be like living in fear, living in unfulfillment, or you can, okay, yeah, you're taking a risk, it's a little bit scary, but ultimately you're committing yourself to like longevity of like thriving and abundance. Most people in my life have told me, oh, should you be doing that? Questioning me like, isn't that a bit risky? Yeah, but aren't you worried about this? Oh yeah, but you sure that's the right path? The elites essentially are able to get everybody together, get people working the 9 till 5, to then like those people then encourage other people to follow that route, because that's what they've done, and for their own ego's sake they need to get people to do what they've done to justify their choice in participating in that. When somebody does something unorthodox, it threatens their very existence and their very like choice, because you know, again, going back to that whole thing of like productivity equals worth, it's like that's the kind of paradigm, that's kind of the situation they've been living in, that's the prerogative that they've chosen. So anybody that kind of questions that or undermines that, is they're going to see as a threat, and they're going to encourage you to like follow what they followed, because that then validates their own existence, that then validates their own choice. It would be awful for them to come to the realization that somebody has been successful, lived a life of fulfillment without having to follow the path that they've followed, like the 9 till 5. Just like when somebody questions you and judges you for choosing an alternative path, actually they're just trying to validate themselves. It's like a self-soothing action. You know, people will be questioning you at every turn, but it's just inevitable, because it's not the norm, it's not what most people do, and they need to be able to validate their own existence essentially, especially when their existence or their value is attached so heavily to their productivity and like their working life. The newer generations are starting to especially since COVID, especially just since like so many veils have been lifted in terms of like, you know, showing the cracks in capitalism, and a lot of people are choosing to move on from that and work for themselves. That's fantastic. But the thing is, it's so difficult when, like I said at the beginning, the 9 till 5 structure doesn't leave room for be able to pursue something different, and it's leaving a lot of people overworked and just very, very burnt out. You can't really have both long term. So there will reach a point where you will, okay, I want the stability of a 9 till 5, but I also want to work towards my goals. Fantastic. You can only do that simultaneously for a period of time. You reach a point where you're either like, you know what, my hustle's not going to work for now, I'm going to have to go back to my 9 till 5 and do that full time, or you have to take the leap and go for your hustle, go for your side project, business, whatever that might be, full time? Which am I going to choose? The stability of a 9 to 5, but the kind of instability that it brings for me emotionally and like mentally and spiritually? Or am I going to choose to work on this hustle full time, work on this business full time, which yes might bring me financial instability and a bit of future instability, you know, where am I going to go, how is this going to work, but it's going to enrich my soul, it's going to make me fulfilled, it's going to like improve my mental health. You know, there is a point where you have to pick one of the two. And the problem with hustle culture is people don't necessarily recognize that, you know, they're kind of burning themselves into the ground, trying to move away from the 9 to 5 but actually still holding on to 9 to 5, and they're becoming overworked, overstimulated. And again, it plays into that, actually it's still capitalistic, it's still you know, seeing like work as the most kind of important thing in one's life. And you know, I feel like hustle culture unfortunately has become just an extension of overtime. It's just that like it seems better because it's working for yourself, which granted it is a little bit better, but it's still actually it's still capitalistic. It's still this idea that productivity and output and working a lot is great and amazing. You know, I used to basically think, you know, oh yeah, I want to be working all the time, like, you know, I need to be putting in the same amount of hours that I did when I was in my 9 to 5 that I do for my business. But it doesn't work like that. You know, you have days where you're really intense and it's like a lot's going on, even like weeks and months, and then there's a time where it kind of like plateaus, and then you know you need to rest. And that's kind of like, I guess fortunately for me now, where that's happened, where I'm able to actually rest and recuperate, because I actually literally have burnout and I need to. And that's because the reason I have burnout is because I did that. I did, you know, the 9 to 5 and the hustle at the same time. And there was a point where like basically if I didn't stop, I would have crashed. I tried to do both at the same time for years. I used to feel very like proud of the fact that like, yeah, I come home and I work another like 3 hours. Like, especially now when I've realised that I don't need to do that and I'm still fine, is so silly. Because a flex is saying, you know what, I did what I wanted to do all day, I rested in terms of like, you know, gave myself a break from work and I still do really well. Like, that's the real flex. It's important to like praise yourself on the amount of rest that you are taking, because we are told so often and so frequently that resting is like bad, resting is like lazy, and it's just bollocks. It's not. Like, you feeling like you have to be productive and like work all the time benefits them. Just because hustle culture is working towards your goals, it doesn't mean to say that it's really any better. It's just like capitalism or overwork or workaholism repackaged. So just be mindful of that and just understand that, like, you know, there has to be a point where something's got to give, otherwise you will experience burnout. This is just from my opinion. I would definitely love to hear what you guys think about this as well. Everybody has different capacities. Just coming from like a sensitive person, somebody that gets overstimulated, somebody that like, yes, has like a pretty good capacity for work, but also like, you know, is susceptible to burnout. It's really important that you know, you kind of make that choice between short-term stability and like your long-term stability, and reframing and redefining what stability means for you. You know, most successful people aren't hustling, working, grinding, because again, it's like this, it comes from this lacking place, it comes from this like guilt place, it comes from this low vibrational place of like, oh my god, I need to keep doing stuff, I need to keep working, like I'm not allowed rest, like rest is bad. You know, it comes from like a guilt of not doing stuff, like not working on things, not like working towards your future or whatever. Like, look, I still grapple with this. When I have days when I don't do much work, I feel guilty. And that's like a low vibrational state to be in. And the only way that I know I'm going to be able to recuperate and actually like create abundance for myself and my life is to stop feeling shame and stop feeling guilt and stop feeling fear around work, and like basically to not, you know, to reprogram my mind to believe that I don't have to be putting in loads of work and loads of hours in order to reap the rewards that I want to reap. You don't have to put in loads of work. You just have to work smart. You know, we think, oh, well, you know, somebody's on like a higher salary, they must be putting in more work, they must be more skilled. No. There are fully people on like £100,000 salaries if not more, like basically 6-figure salaries, and they can't even write an email. It's got nothing to do with skill, it's got nothing to do with your worth, it's got everything to do with the understanding that your kind of value isn't derived from the time you put in and the skills you have. Like, that is a fallacy. Undoing and unraveling those limiting beliefs, or those beliefs in general, is what's going to help you out of burnout. It's what's going to allow you to rest. It's what's going to kind of give you permission to recuperate. You can rest, and you need to make time for rest in order to be your best self and maximize, you know, your capabilities. I feel like today was a bit more of a discussion video, just talking about my thoughts on capitalism. I kind of like had a few revelations myself, even just talking about it, and just realizing things as I said it that were kind of like, shit, I was like conditioned to believe that, and I still kind of do, and I'm still having to unravel that. So changing my mindset, understanding these structures and like frameworks that are in place to keep us controllable, and therefore like not fulfilling probably our purpose most of the time, is just honestly what I attribute, like understanding that and then like going against it is what I attribute my success to. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.